If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm Angela Grout, your host of the show, the host of the day, and the guest of the day, because today I'm flying solo. And if you watched one of the last episodes of Flying Solo, this is episode number 2, and the desk here is kind of a mess because I do something different on Flying Solo. I talk about why I do what I'm doing. And today I'm going to talk to you about why I decided to write a screenplay, how I wrote a screenplay, and how, if you want to write a screenplay, maybe the steps I took might help you. So that's going to be our show today. So buckle up, get ready, because I got lots of show and tell again. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is why I have stones here. I have 4 beautiful stones. Look at this. It's like, Moses handing, or I don't know, whatever, God handing Moses a commandment or something, a little stone temple. Anyways, I have the stone because, every writer needs some inspiration. And I wrote this book, RAiN, and I started it, oh my God, like 20 years ago. And I am excited to announce that I have been doing script readings for the screenplay. And who knows when you're watching this? It might be during the process of when I'm still trying to pursue making this into a movie, or maybe after the movie is made. I don't know. It's been on my heart to do for 20 years. And the story came to me that it was supposed to be a movie. But as many of you know, I was a florist. So, I'm making events for, flowers and weddings and funerals and birthdays. And I'm not making movies. So I don't know how to make a movie. So what do? I go to the library and I start looking up how to make a movie. I get this screenwriter's guide, the Bible, which I had shown last time. And I kind of glance through it and I'm like, yeah, this is not for me. I don't think I can do this. And then, I start writing in journals, and I've brought a few of the journals here. And I was telling you last time, when I do my journaling and when I'm doing my writing, I number my journals and I have indexes in them so that I know kind of what's in them. Sometimes I write on the outside what's inside them. And this one here is a manuscript class that I took. And I took a class on how to write a manuscript because I thought, well, writing a book will be a little bit easier than writing a movie. Maybe, I don't know. So all of a sudden, I start sitting down and I start making lots and lots of notes. And I do lots and lots of research. And I'm cutting out things from newspapers and I'm cutting out things from the web that are things that are going to help me to write this story. Now, why am I writing this story? Well, it came to me in a dream, which we'll have another episode about these dreams. But, I have this dream that, where there's a story that you don't have an answer to and it's really bothering you, then you have to find a story to kind of make sense for it. And the dream that I had was I was coming out of a grocery store and there's a shopping cart wedged into the side of the car. Now, the car is damaged. There's no one around. There are no cameras, so we're never going to know who put that carriage there. So I thought to myself, how am I going to figure out who damaged the car? Well, in the dream it was said, well, you have 2 choices. 1, you can think someone deliberately put that shopping cart, boom, into the car. Or 2, you can think the wind blew it. And which story will make you feel better? Which story will bring peace? And I woke up and I was like, that's it. I need to write a story that can bring some peace. So this story happens to be inspired by a murder that happened in my town, in my hometown. Now, I don't know what happened in this murder. It was the murder of Lisa Ziegler, and it was back, over 25 years ago. And, it really bothered me. It bothered a lot of women in town because, we didn't know if it was a serial killer, if she was a target, if it was a random act of violence. And, these things, being an unsolved crime for many years, and of course at the time, I didn't know it was going to be an unsolved crime for many years. I was like, I want to find something that's going to bring peace to this. Like, her body's found, stabbed multiple times in the woods, and there was no murder to be found until 25 years later. All right, with that said, I'm now going to talk to you about this rock because this rock here is a very special rock because doing this book here, I started being a little investigative reporter. So, I went and walked the crime scene where this girl's body had been. And I came across this rock. And when I saw this rock, it looked completely whole. And in a minute, I'm going to show you exactly what it looked like. But this is how it comes across. I find a rock in the woods. I have an inspiration for a story. There's my base. Now, I have to find and do research for it. So now I'm doing writing and I'm doing research for this and adding that to it. After I do some writing and some research, I then start to develop a story for it. And there's a lot of pieces to this. But in the end, I realized that, things might have 3 pieces. Some things have 4 pieces. For me, I had the inspiration. I did all the writing. I wrote the book. But I knew in the beginning it was supposed to be a movie. So there's my final piece. And if you can kind of see these lines, it was just cool. It just kind of stuck out. I saw that and I said, why is that rock split? And it literally, I have a video of it, but I can't show you now, of how this kind of came to me. And I brought it home. And like crazy writers can be, we need to interview our muses. So I interviewed this rock. So of course, I have notes in my notebook, and I think it might be in this red one. I'm not going to read it to you directly, but I'm going to interview this rock and say, you were in the woods the night that happened. What happened? What did you see? Was there a car that drove through? Did you hear screams? You know what? I just started writing. I started getting creative, and then I was saying, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just start writing random thoughts. Random thoughts break into random poetry. That breaks into me having to go online in the middle of the night and look up, facts about how to make a movie, how to write a story, how to develop things. And I'm taking notes in the middle of the night. And I'm doing all of this stuff here in order to come up with a story that can bring some sort of peace. So now, here I am getting ready to do a script reading tonight. So I've taken this, and if you're going to write a story, this is the whole basis of what I want to show you today, is you're going to write a book, or they call it a treatment. You want to write something that shows that you have the personal property of the story that you have. So you come up with your story, you write it down. This right here is now your Bible. This is the Bible that you're going to base doing your script on. So now that you have the Bible, you actually, I could go through this and take each story, each chapter, and turn it into one scene or multiple scenes. I'm pulling out more stuff. So what I did, and I have all my research notes here for April RAiN. These are even more notes that I've taken. These are articles. One night I had a little meltdown with my kids and started ripping stuff up, and they got a little nervous, and I said, don't worry. I have it all on my computer. When I'm doing the research for some of the technical things that were in the book, like in the autopsy, the universe sometimes provides you the information. Obviously, I can go to the library and research this, but I happened to be at a tag sale one day, and this book was here. And I just picked it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, the autopsy has these little test tubes. I need to know what they're called. So, of course, I bring this home, and, I get my information that I need. So there's a lot of different research that you can do on this. This here are a bunch of personal essays that when I was interviewing The Rock, or when I was interviewing any of the characters that I started to develop, and saying to them, where were you on the night that she disappeared? Where were you when the body was found? These are the interviews that I had with these muses, sitting down and talking to them. And then, of course, I go into, my other little files here, which is where I start finding out how I'm going to write a movie. And I take some classes online, which thankfully there are so many online. I go to the library, I look up some books. I actually go and I watch a few films being made. One of them was the Jack Jonah film, and he was, I'll put the link in. His episode is early on. I want to say maybe episode 6, I'm going to guess. He made a film right here in West Springfield. So I went and kind of watched the process of it, of how they divided the scenes up and how they organized the day. And then that brings me to my handwritten pages of trying to figure out, this here is scene 4. So scene 4, I have handwritten if it's inside or outside, where the location is, wooded area, and where my set could be. Now, I live in West Springfield, and there's an area called Bear Hole, which is a wooded area. There's Robinson State Park. So I'm just putting my local areas on where it would be filmed. Then I have the characters that are in this scene. So I have 6 characters in this scene. I am then writing what props would be needed. So here we need police and cruisers and crime scene tape, evidence bags, a van, a stretcher, a tent, tarps. Can you see what scene we're in? And then, if there's some wardrobe that's needed, and if there's any other extras. And then with the help of some of the classes that I've taken, I then get to look and count the scene pages of this scene 4, and I can find out how long this scene would take to film. So when you're looking at your scene pages, and I'm going to jump right to the end here, because this is our final script. Dun, 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 dun. And yes, the writers' conference is on for November 1st. But here we have the final script, and this is what the actors get when they do the table reading, when we're rehearsing, so that this way they have the script in hand and they can see it. So I give them a list of all the character descriptions. So, if they're playing one, they can find out who someone else is if they want to know who they're interacting with before they start reading. And then when you go in here, you can go right to, I don't know where scene 4 is in here, but when you look at these pages, each page gets divided into 8. So if you almost picture like a ruler, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each one of these is a minute. And just about a minute. So now I've said this scene, now I told you, you got 6 characters, all of this stuff. This scene is 1/8 of a page. It's just 1/8. So this is like an aerial view. There's no dialogue in this scene. This is just a scene where we are the camera would be going into the wooded area. You are going to see the 6 characters. You are going to see all of these props. And that's that whole scene. So it's, there's a lot when it comes to measuring scenes, because you need to know the time, you need to know, exactly who's going to be there. And the next step after the script is completely final, which we like to say it's final when you're going into a script reading. But you still are always making some changes and adaptations. But in doing that, you end up going through it and trying to find out, okay, if you have a scene in the wooded area, in scene 4, if there's a scene 8 that also has a wooded area, well, you're probably going to want to film all those in hopefully like one day. So, if you have 1/8 of a page in the wooded area for this scene, and maybe 2/8 of a page or 3/8 of a page for another scene, then that's going to tell you how much time you need to budget, for making that scene. And it's time and money that you're budgeting. So, and the planning of everything that you need there, which is why you need a really good assistant director, and it takes a village. I can tell you that. So, some other steps in order to do this is, when I took my Bible here, I would go through it and write down every single character's name that is in this book. Make the list of all of their names. Then I'm giving them the description of, how old they are is important. If they're male or female, that's important. If they have a specific occupation that's important to the scene, important to the movie, you need to include that. And then you can get really creative and do backstories with them if you want. And it's really great. I have, Detective David Rowland, who is the responding officer at the scene. He has this whole backstory of, he went to high school with the girl's parents. So it's like he has this connection to them, that he's known them for many years. So I can write a whole story. I can write a whole scene about how they met in high school, and maybe they double dated at the prom. Is it important to put in this in the book here? No, but it is important for me as a writer to get to know my character, and sometimes even the actors like to know those things when they're preparing for the character. So that's just a couple things that I'll share. I have, this is the In the Middle of the Night script, which we'll be talking about on another Flying Solo when I start talking about the dreams and things. So this here is one of the final drafts that I had for it. And when I was done with this, I was able to work with Linda Bergman, and she's also on a prior episode here. Linda Bergman is like a Hollywood screenwriting goddess. She did the story of Jessica Savage, and she's worked on so many different ABC specials, and she's written a lot of screenplays. So her and I were able to sit down and go through the entire script in this form. And she did a screenplay analysis for me, and we went through kind of like line for line to see, you know, what works, what doesn't, who's the main character, who are we following. And, you know, working with someone after you have that done is really helpful, especially when they're a professional, because they're showing you the professional eye in it. After her and I worked with this, and we actually did this twice. Thank you, Linda, very much. Big shout out to Linda B. I then met with some other people, and one of them was Voyage Media, and they also did a screenplay analysis. And the great thing with Voyage Media, I met with Richard Mitas, who did the movie We All Live in Castles, and I believe he did Flatliners too. He actually came up with a really great pitch line for me, because, you know, I'm like, you know, trying to narrow down the pitch to tell someone what it is. And, you know, he was like, okay, so this is about a nurse who has an affair with a police officer, and they're going to cover up a crime. And I was like, yeah, wow, that's really great. That's summed up in like one line. I'm thinking, oh, there's a dead body in the woods, and, you know, we have to, you know, solve this crime and find out, you know, the whole tangled web in there. And, you know, working with them for that was really great. Another person that I will say was very helpful writing the book, and again, taking online classes and reading about how to write a novel, how other writers write their stuff is super, super helpful. So I did a class with Margaret Atwood and with James Patterson, and both of them helped me to be comfortable with the writing, where Margaret Atwood, and I think I've said this on other episodes, has a great line where someone asked her, does everything in your books, has it happened in your life? And she was like, everything in my books has happened in life, just not necessarily in my personal life. And I was like, you know what? That's so true, because everything in this book has happened in my life, but maybe not directly to me. I did have a friend who was stabbed multiple times. She wasn't left in the woods and she didn't die, but I can write firsthand from an experience of that. I have had, you know, I was going to say clients. I'll say clients, say customers. I don't know, whatever. I mean, they're not going to be identified here, who, you know, have had affairs with police officers. So it's like, I understand that relationship and, you know, what happens in that. So in order to write what I know, even though it's not what I know, I write from the experience that I've had in the world, which is what one of the things Margaret Atwood kind of talked about. With James Patterson, someone had asked him in this masterclass, and it is on masterclass, so you can take it. You know, they have these like office hours or whatever, and asked him, you know, do you always know the ending of your story before you start? And the assignment he gave us was, well, pick the ending of your story and think of 3 really crazy things of how it happened. So I was like, okay, dead girl in the woods, how does it start? Well, not only did I write 1, I wrote 10, and I actually was going to share them with you, but I don't think I have them right here in my fingertips. So anyways, I, you know, wrote she was abducted by aliens, and, you know, that 2 hobos jumped off a train and, you know, abducted her, and, you know, all stuff. And none of those were really flowing with me. So then, you know, by the time I got to, like, you know, a couple other outrageous ones, you know, one started working, and it allowed me to keep the pen flowing. So sometimes, you know, a little cue of what's going to happen at the end of the show with our writing prompt is, you know, sometimes you just have to start with something really outrageous to get to the meat of the story that you want to tell. All right, I know I'm jumping around, and this is just how a writer's brain works. So I get my screen analysis from, you know, Voyage Media, from Richard Mitas, who, you know, gives me a great, like, log line, pitch line to do. We discuss the characters, we discuss, you know, all of these things. And I mean, this literally, all of this happened, I'm going to say 8 years ago. And before I even wrote the movie, I wrote a play. And I wrote the play at the Springfield Museums with Dan Eaton from the Majestic Theater. And it was before the pandemic. And literally, like, it kind of got put aside because, number one, when you're doing a play for the stage, you usually want like maybe 3, 5, 7 characters. I mean, I have, 44. So 44 is more of a movie, especially when you're going to have extras on top of that. To do 44 in a play, unless it's a Broadway production, this is not a Broadway production. This is a movie. But when you're writing, a play for it, again, you can, if you don't write the book and you don't write the treatment and you write an actual play with dialogue, that also becomes your, intellectual property, and it can become the Bible for the base of your story. But in order to do that, you do need to register with the Dramatists Guild, because you want to have your work registered. I register with the Dramatists Guild and with Writers Guild of America East, and I don't know, something else, which I feel bad I can't remember right now. But I wanted to share that with you. So if you're doing plays, make sure that, you register them. Copywriting them is pretty simple. I mean, once you have a printed book, I mean, this is a copyright right here, but you can, send manuscripts, to yourself, to friends. It's dated in the email, so you know when it was created. All right, so this is going to be fun for you writers and people who are planners. This is a storyboard. My storyboard. I have a few of them. One's really big and I couldn't bring it in. But here are all of the different chapters on this. I have a few of these. But literally, like, it will say, what the chapters were, kind of what's in it. This one is an old one because Jessica's original name was Gina, and it's Jessica now. So, of course, I have, Gina's story here. I have, a lot of these chapter titles even saved. This one's called White Lightning, and I'm, telling what I want in the scene, which this is going to be a flashback scene. So I have all of these little yellow papers were kind of everywhere when it was making sense to me. But this is something really great to do either before or after you've written. Come up with, if you're going to come up with your scene titles or what you want in it, you can literally write them all out on Post-it notes and then put them up in the order that you want it told. So, because sometimes when you're just making your, making plans for it, it comes out of order. So just write it down out of order, and then it finds the order for it. So this is probably the, let's see, we're going to look at the date here. Oh, this is the stage play. So this is the stage play, which I don't know where the date is. So, this was one of the stage plays that I wrote for April RAiN. I did do table readings with this one, but because there's so many characters, it was hard to narrow it down to like 7. I think I might have brought it down to 11. And, it's a similar story to this. It's not the exact story of this. Everything's going to be a little bit different because of the settings and stuff like that. And there was something else I wanted to show you over here. Look at all my stuff. Okay. So here I have, oh, come on, I hope I can find it right here. Okay, so then I have these cue cards here. And these cue cards are, I'm calling them cue cards because they're big, not just index cards, where I was writing the different scenes on these. So here I have, there's a cop that plays a writer, and I was writing a scene and it got cut out, but the cop was actually playing a writer, and yeah, the cop was playing the writer so that he could write the scene. And I was able to write that thinking, okay, along the lines of a police officer, okay, I want to write the scene of, how I'm going to approach the person of interest and how I'm going to interview them. So using this is, I'm telling you, notebooks are important. Labeling them is important. Knowing what you have is important. And most importantly, getting the story out the way the story wants to be told is really important. Because I was hoping, once I had the book, I was one and done. But it kept saying, no, it really needs to be a movie. Go back to the movie. Go back to the movie. So I went back to the screenwriting book. And as you can see, I took it seriously this time. Tacked up all these pages. I have a cousin who has written movies and actually won an Emmy for his show on WHY in Philadelphia. he does shows like this. He interviews people for music. So I talk about books. He talks about music. I'll put his link in here. All right, Steve Kwasnik, I'm going to give you a shout out. But, you know, he was able to send me scripts, and studying the way scripts are written and looking at, like, Diane Bell is a director, and she wrote a movie called Obsidian. I read her script, and just kind of reading and studying the scripts of other people and how it's laid out really helps to move things along. This has been done in a system called Final Draft. So Final Draft helps you to, like, you hit tab and it goes over and you tell if it's a character, or you tell it if it's going to be like how the character is going to talk, like they're angry, or if, you know, if it's dialogue. So Final Draft was a whole nother little working tool of having to learn. But when you're passionate to do something, you're going to find a way to do it. And here I am. We've done a table read. We're doing some other little updating of the script. Average script, usually they say, is, you know, a minute a page when you're filming. And it's not a minute to make. It's a minute, like, of actual footage. That one page could take 2 hours to film. You never know. You know, this one here is 108 pages. A lot of times they're about 120 pages. So, you know, I know, like, after a few edits, I'll probably be right in there. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 118 pages. I'm sorry. That was a typo. So, anyways, look at that. I'm right in there. All right. I hope you've learned something today on this show. You've learned why I have a rock on the table. You know, why and how I started writing a book and making my notes and taking classes. And I just want to say thanks for listening to me just spewl, and, you know, hopefully it's going to help you, because if you're a writer, I really want to help you, because when I was doing all this stuff, I couldn't find anyone to tell me how to do all this stuff. So, you know, I'd love to sit down and help you if I can too. So it's the time of the show that I guess I have to say goodbye, because we want to keep it at 30 minutes. So thank you for listening. Thank you for buying my book, RAiN, and reading it, and going to the movies to see it when it's out there, because it's got to be out there. It's just got to. I'm on a 3-year, very aggressive plan to finish this up. And I look forward to seeing you on my next flying solo episode. And, you know, but please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please keep watching these, because there's other writers out there who know way more than me and have a lot more experience. And every single time they come on the show, I learn something. I know you'll learn something. And together, we're going to fill this world with our stories that are going to inspire and help other people, and hopefully bring peace to something that wasn't a peaceful thing, or who knows, maybe bring humor to something that stresses you out, like childbirth. And if you have a story to get out, then get your baby out. That's what I want to help you with here on yWrite. So it's the time of the show where I'm going to give you that writing prompt. Are you ready? So when the show is over, if you're new here, I'm going to explain this. When the show is over, set your watch, set your phone, put your timer on for 10 minutes. At least, I'm going to say 10 minutes, you know. If you have more time, great. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about the story that you want to write. Now, maybe that story is something that you don't know how to write it, but you know the ending of it. Could be real, could be not real. Think about the ending of a story that you have. And I want you to make that list that James Patterson had me make. And, you know, it could be 3. You can go to 10 if you want. Write 3 outrageous ways that it could happen. So here's a for instance, you know, guy and girl falls in love, goes off to Niagara Falls, has a beautiful wedding, and lived happily ever after. How did they get there? Talk about it. Did they meet in college? Did they meet in high school? Is this a second or third marriage? You know, you're going to kind of go down that list. Make a list of how it started. Now, you don't have to write about the Niagara Falls unless you're really interested in that. But whatever story you're interested in, that's what I want you to write about. And just think about the ending and think about how it could possibly start. Because you got to start writing. Whether it's going to be a creatively written story or if it's going to be your memoir, you have to tell it. Because it's important for others to read, to learn. But, you know, if it's a memoir, your family is going to really treasure that, because those are wonderful memories to keep. So thank you so much for tuning in to yWrite every week. I love sharing information like this. I want to thank Studio 954 for letting me have the show. And it's streaming worldwide on all those streaming networks, and of course on your local cable television channel. So I want to say thank you to all that, and thank you for tuning in to yWrite, and I will see you next show. Have a great day. Bye.